The last thing is submitting a project application. I want to just introduce the subject because you're going to get into this a lot more deeper with actual demonstrations this afternoon. But I just want to kind of get a couple of things through to you. And then we'll break at noon. We got an hour for lunch. And then we get back at 1 o'clock. You'll start getting into the gory details. First of all, if you're a contractor, you're a service provider, what have you, the key is, and most of the contractors and service providers we deal with now, they're looking at their portfolio of clients, and they're trying to identify all their clients that meet kind of certain criteria, size building, things of that nature. And from a preference standpoint, when they've asked us what should we look at, we try to get them to focus on these things. If it's owner-occupied or single tenant, they're going to get the biggest benefit themselves. Those are no-brainers. Those are easy to deal with, as opposed to having millions of tenants with sub-meters, and it gets much more complex. If they haven't touched the equipment in years because of the economy, and they've got this pent-up demand, or you know that they need, they got to replace the RTUs. They're at the end of their useful life. Okay? Those are really important because those can be fast-tracked right through our program. You need buildings, it's tough to pick size because you can have a smaller building with a lot of energy conservation measures, but by and large, about the smallest we've dealt with is in the neighborhood of 15,000 square feet. So if you can, you're looking for your clients to have reasonably sized buildings. I'd say the norm for the program seems to be somewhere in that 30 to 40,000 to 100,000, and that seems to be the target area that contractors go after. And then if you've made proposals to them, but nobody can figure out where the money comes from. Yeah. I mean, these are the things that you want to go back and resurrect, because in effect that's going to be your source where these upgrades can be made. And you can do some quick estimates to get a feel, because you've probably already done it, what type of energy savings might be realized. But as long as there's some reasonable energy savings, you've met some of this, it looks reasonable, this reasonably large project, I got to replace the RTUs anyway, start thinking about maybe that's something I should sit down and talk with my client about, and now bring the answer, the missing link, which is the funding part. So basically you're going after a client with a package that includes, just before it may have been equipment, it may have been engineering, equipment, what have you, but no financing. It just costs this amount of money. Now you're bringing the financing package that we've been talking about. And obviously when you send your proposal to the building owner, the thing that, and we can help you with it, remember their language is not technical, their language is financial. So you want to certainly convert as much of the technical gory details to what does it mean financially. Tell me about this what is this thing, CPACE? Oh, it's long-term, what type of interest rates? Oh, what does it mean to my cash flow? Or what could it mean? How does it work? All of this stuff becomes now part of the package that you're dealing with your client on that in the past you never worried about. Okay, so the ability to add financing can be very powerful in terms of you dealing with clients. And I put a person's name here. Brian, you're here, aren't you? Is Brian Burstein? Oh, there's Brian Burstein, his hands in the back. He's the guy you'll talk to, and he'll help you put the darn thing together to convert it to the commercial real estate financialese language, because that's the thing that matters. And if necessary, we'll help you with your client. So if you think you need some support in the field, we have no problem supporting you on that. So again, it's a little bit different way of thinking, but you got to get through, before you come to us, you got to get through with your client. You certainly want to have a client that's ready, willing, and able. Otherwise everybody's wasting their time. So again, it usually begins with your proposal, your discussion with your client. Now there are some minimum things that you might want to talk to your client about. Is there a mortgage, everything current? These are some of the things. They look at the LTV. And again, you don't have to get into knowing it, just mention it to your client. If your client's been bankrupt for the last 3 years, is in arrears on property tax, forget about it. Don't waste your time, don't waste our time. But again, there are things that you can raise, and we have some questionnaires and other things that we can share with you if you want to just give it to your client. You know, well, you don't give it initially, you first see if they're interested in the process, and if they are, the next step is, well, any problems here? No? Okay, we're in pretty good shape. And then if you are, then you basically you can put an application in. Okay, now this data up here, there is some financial data that CPACE or CEFIA will ask of the client if there's really going to be a project. So eventually the client's going to actually put some data in. And if you want to see a full application, just go online. Okay? But the first thing you want to do is you got to get the client interested and make sure that quickly it looks like it's realistic. Because you don't want to spend a lot of time, we don't want to spend a huge amount of time if this project isn't going to go. Okay? So again, they'll get into this, okay, later in the process, but we certainly want to do some initial stuff up front to make sure you're not wasting your time and we're not wasting ours. And we'll work with you on how to do that. Now, once your application is accepted, we have you'll know almost instantly, then you're going to be working very closely with the CDMP, our data management platform, and you're going to see a whole presentation, I think it's from 1 o'clock to 2:30, on how you're going to be interacting with it. Because basically all your data goes into the CDMP. CDMP does all sorts of things and allows you to play with it in a lot of different ways until you finally get the scenario that you want that has that SIR greater than 1. And if it ultimately is there, there's no problem with any of the financials. In other words, the CEFIA will talk to the bank, let them know if it's not a bank that's already in our program that there's this issue with a priority lien. And as long as there's no big issue with it and the bank doesn't say, absolutely not, I'm not going to do it, then everything's a go to get the project into technical review, which maybe it'll take a week, maybe 2 weeks, depending on the project. It's not a big deal. Okay, and once the project finishes technical review, the financial review is pretty much done. Then the project goes to what we call the committee for financing it, and it can happen pretty quickly. Okay, it doesn't and again, you'll see more of these details later on when Jennifer gets into the programs and the projects that we've done. Once everything is done, that deal can close. Okay, and as you know, any closing in a real estate deal can take 60 days, 30 to 60 days, just that. Okay, so just, that's normal par for the course. So I mean, you're not unusual that you could be looking at 6 months for start to finish, sometimes 9 months, sometimes even a year, but you're generally, within that range. The CDMP is crucial. That's why we're going to spend an hour and a half going through it with you online, because everything we have had to be standardized. That's critical to us, so that everything is transparent in a standardized way so we can compare. Otherwise, we have issues. The other thing is where is it? This, you're going to learn how to do this, because you're not going to come in automatically, unless I'm just replacing the boiler, that's it. Well, then you're not going to play any games, you're just going to go right to, a certain path. But generally, the contractors are looking at multiple ECMs, and they may want to see what the impact is. Well, I can combine this ECM, which has a very, very long payback, with this ECM that can be done pretty quickly. Let's see what the impact is. Well, and then what else can I add in? Because you may have when you did the audit or when you walked through the facility, you may have a whole list of things that ultimately could theoretically be put in, just a matter of cost and savings. So you'll do all that playing, and you'll learn how to do that this afternoon. And the key is, after you've done all that playing, whatever you want to recommend to your client, you can take that data. The platform will produce a report. In fact, 2 types of reports, both a scenario report, which identifies this, and you'll see what they look like this afternoon. You'll see what's in them. And it'll produce a finance report, which is what the financial people, our capital providers, want. And again, it's all financial information. Okay, both reports will be generated by our platform. You can take them both to your client, however you want to deal with it. But fundamentally, you'll do this playing around, and after you're done there, this report it'll all be prepared for you so that you can take it and discuss it with your client. The other thing too is that the people in the way our platform works, we are a transparent platform, which means there are many different people that may be parties to the data, to the project. It can range not from just the building owner and us at CEFIA or CPACE. It may be an insurer, if there's an insurer involved in the project in some way, the lender. A lot of different people may have access to whatever this information is. Not all of it, but certainly the information relative that's appropriate for them. And we want to make sure it's the same data presented in exactly the same way, and that's what our CDMP does. The other thing too is it's able to, on the back end, it incorporates everything, well, the commissioning data and most importantly the monitoring and verification module, which will allow us to track it and produce reports not only for us internally, but also for all the stakeholders. So we have capital providers, our lenders, they want, throughout the financing term, they want reports on some frequent basis, and that's to be determined. It'll produce the same types of reports, everything's all standardized. And that's important. And then the other thing too is the loans, you may get a loan initially not from one of our capital providers, but it may be the Green Bank in Connecticut, and there's roughly $40 million right now in the Green Bank. They may make the loan. And then ultimately, when the loans get to a certain amount, they would sell them to a capital provider. The capital provider may take the loans and just accumulate them. They call it warehousing, till they get maybe $50 to $100 million. Then they can take those loans, securitize them on Wall Street, actually sell bonds, energy bonds, based on that. They call it commercial mortgage-backed security bonds. So it's a huge process that's followed. You're not going to be involved in this, but the CDMP is facilitating it. Your data is going to continually go through all those different stakeholders as this process works. So in conclusion, all I want to introduce you to is that you've got to get to the building owner, particularly since most of you are contractors, energy service companies providing audits, engineering firms. The means to be able to do that is built into our platform. We can help you do that if you want the help to convert the proposals, what have you, into the language of the commercial real estate people. Once the building owner says yes, then the application process starts and hopefully gets completed with a financing. So that's what I want to just introduce you to this afternoon. Again, you're going to spend an hour and a half live going through this. You'll see what all these reports look like that are going to get scattered around. And if you have questions, we're here, so just feel free to ask. Any questions just quickly on anything I've talked about throughout the morning before we take our break for lunch? Yep.
Anything that we can use for like boilerplate to put on our quotes, reference what it's about?
Yeah, we do have boilerplate. I'm not sure, Genevieve's not, Will, is it in the manual, the boilerplate they have?
It should be, yeah. The financing agreement.
No, all of the, is there a boilerplate that they can give to their client that talks about CPACE and, I mean, I know there's that one pager. Is there anything more than that?
Yeah, the program guide. I think the program guidelines don't have the boilerplate.
Yeah, there's one or two pieces of paper, and I think, Brian, you use them, don't you, with the contractors?
A standardized brochure, a PDF brochure that's going to be circulated that has CPACE branding on it and so forth.
Good.
As a matter of fact, I won't speak for Will, but I think there's even a coming capability to put your own branding in conjunction with that couple-page PDF brochure when you're in the introductory conversation stage. That's what
Yeah. So you could actually get your own branding, right, Brian, on that the PDF document?
co-branded with the CEFIA CPACE.
Okay. And if you need assistance on that, Mike, if you need assistance on that, just call Brian Bursteiner up, because I know they'll help you as best, whatever we got, you can have. Okay. And there was a question on the far end here. Okay.
You mentioned boilers only, or something where you do
Boiler light,
Boiler light, okay.
for lack of a better word.
Yeah. And that's like got a 30K,
Okay. It's just we'll look at it. They're small projects.
okay. Do those end up with a shorter term
No?
They're still 20 years.
Yeah. Depending on what you do, we'll look at the EUL, but what you estimate, depending on what you're installing, but it's whatever it is. It's just a smaller dollar value project. The goal is that there's very little, the technical review is mostly automated. And you're putting data right onto a spreadsheet. The spreadsheet is automatically evaluating. It's real quick and it's quick. And it gives a pretty good indicator of what the savings are. We feel pretty confident. We've used it before, and that's it. And it'll go through pretty quickly. But the idea is we like to get lots of those projects. You know, you get 100 boiler light projects, that's $500,000–600,000. So we try to make it easy for you. So if you just do that, you can still be part of the program.
But to the building owner, he still has a 20-year obligation.
Oh, yeah. Well, he can have whatever obligation he wants. If he wants to pay it off in less than the useful life, he can pay it off in 10 years, 5 years. If he only wants it financed for 10 years, we can do that. It makes no difference. But if you want the longest term financing, just because it's boiler light project, we don't say, oh, it's boiler light, we can't finance for more than 5 years. We don't say that. It's still the estimated useful life that drives the life of the project, the financing term.